People are not your most important asset. The right people are. Jim Collins, American researcher, author, speaker, and consultant on business management. Welcome to another morning episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. If you're tuning in live, then I want to especially thank you for giving me your time so very early in the morning. And I do apologize for missing that 7 a.m. deadline. I was just trying to wrap up a few things before I got this show going. But anyway, we are here and we're going to see where this show goes. So today I'm going to give my reasons for endorsing Tub Rohrbaugh over Clint Russell. Giving endorsements is not really something that I generally do for a variety of reasons. Mostly, I just don't like being tied to someone before they run. There's a lot of people that like kind of get in and they want to run, and you never seen how they operate while they're running for a particular office, and so it gets a little tricky. And I just have some of my personal reasons that honestly, I mean, should you should it really matter who I endorse? Probably not, but it seems to be the thing. And in this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and definitely endorse Tub, and then I want to talk about why I'm doing it, and my audience actually might be kind of curious why I'm bringing Clint up at all. I mean, why not just promote Tub, right? Why not just say, hey, Tub's the guy, you want him, and you just kind of ignore everybody else? Well, there's three reasons. Number one, the presidential nomination, the vice presidential nomination should be roles that are considered the highest honor to bestow on anyone in the party because they are the most outward facing role in the party. It's critical that we debate the expectation that we have for these for people that want to seek either one of those roles. Number two, because there are expectations, if we have poor expectations for any role, then that's going to lead to the wrong people being placed in a role. And anybody that's paid attention, they know that I talk a lot about getting the right people in the right roles. In fact, past episodes, in my 13th episode, 13th, like I'm on number 254 now, right? My 13th episode, that was on the that was actually on the Florida convention back in 2020. And what I did was I literally walked through every single presidential nominee and I assigned each one of them a single word. And then I described why I felt that each one of those people fit that word and where I thought they would be best fit within the liberty movement. Because goes into my number three, we need to be comfortable with having conversations in a productive way. Otherwise, we end up just fighting, and that's not good for anybody. Now, with any luck, both Tubb and Clint will agree, if both of them are watching this, will agree on some things and maybe disagree on other things, but ultimately respect my thoughts nonetheless. So those are my three reasons for talking about them. And then this is not really reason, but the reality is, uh, those are the only two names that I've heard pop in, pop up and say, I would like to run for the vice presidential nomination. So I'm like, all right, there's nobody else to talk about, not that I know of. So if there is, I'm not familiar with who they are. So I figured, since there's only two, makes sense. And it gets me an opportunity to show people how critiquing other people is done properly. Now, I want to be clear here. I told Tubb that I was doing this show. Now he has no idea what I'm going to say. I didn't discuss that. Um, Clint has no idea at all that I'm doing the show on him, unless he happens to be up and happens to see the tweet that I sent out, which did include his name. Because if you're going to talk about somebody, then at least make sure you let them know, hey, I'm talking about you. Right? Like, I don't like this stuff where people go and they have a show, they talk about somebody and, they don't let the other person know. Like, that's just don't do that. We can do better than that. And that's the reason why I tagged him. Maybe he'll watch the show, maybe he doesn't care. I don't really know. Um, and then also, Tub is the vice chair of the party here in Duval while I am the chair. So we have a good relationship going on. So it, makes it a little bit easier to let him know ahead of time that I was absolutely going to be doing the show. But again, he doesn't know the things that I'm going to talk about. Now, let's dispense with something here really quickly, because this is extremely important for anybody who might be watching or listening. If you are adversarial to Clint or myself for that matter, and you're here to find or seek out whatever dirt maybe I dug up on him, then I'm just going to suggest that you turn this episode off and go find something else to do, because I'm not here to feed into your drama. What I'm here to do is to show how iron sharpens iron. Okay. Everything I say will be for the explicit intent of edifying the party and getting people, again, into what I believe are the right roles for them. So let's get started. And to get started, we need to go back. All right. So I was trying out some new stuff here. All right. So I'm going to read you something. This is from a while ago. Pastor Tubb, it was great speaking with you last Friday. After some reflection, I don't see any reason why I would be unable to support you running for a local office here in Jacksonville. That's both personally and as chair of the local affiliate. What stood out to me the most was your distinct and unequivocal separation with your religious faith and views on the role of government. Your attentiveness to how perception impacts candidate runs also stands out and fits well with the goal of raising the bar how libertarians engage, be it on Facebook or, and more importantly, in the direct eye of the public. If you believe this path is the one you are to take, then I look forward to getting as much support behind you as I can. If not, I do hope you keep in contact and seek another path. This that was an email that I sent to Tubb February 9th, 2021. Now, here's what happened. I believe that someone from the LPF reached out about connecting with Tubb, or maybe it was Tubb that reached out directly to me or to the party. To be honest with you, I can't really remember specifically how it happened. But either way, our first conversation was literally 3 hours in my home. The man showed up, we sat down, and we talked for like 3 hours in my living room about him potentially running and just all things party related. We talked about a lot of things. And before he ultimately ran, we actually had several more conversations. So right away, one of the first things that I did was I laid it out straight with him. I said, and some of my first words to him were that if he were to run, he should not expect a whole lot of support. I know, what chair does that, right? Like, what? Why would you do that? It's not that he wouldn't get it, but here in Duval, I don't recall ever having run a candidate in Jacksonville. And at the time, is my understanding that the LPF, one of the criticisms from other candidates was that the LPF, the Libertarian Party of Florida, wasn't always so good at giving out support. It's kind of a little dirty laundry there. Sorry, LPF. I love you guys. But Tubb had been a libertarian for around 18 years and had decided that he was ready to take action. And so he did. Now, Clint's history, I'm a little less familiar with. And that isn't to say that it's any less. He may have an equally motivating story. Maybe it's even better. I don't know. But it isn't Tubbs' story over his that leads me to my decision. It does, however, play a role in the reason that I believe delegates should vote for Pastor Tubb as their VP. Now, I want you to remember a moment ago, I said that if you came looking for dirt, to just turn it off. Well, I said that because in times like this, people often seek out bazillion screenshots or, all kind of video clips that they're just sure proves this negative thing about somebody. Well, you might also remember that in September of 2021, in episode 66 of my podcast, I defended Karen Ann Harlos against accusations that I felt were garbage. And one of my big criticisms was that her adversaries collected like this deluge of screenshots that allegedly proved their case. I opposed that behavior then. I oppose it now. So I won't be doing that. And in fact, I will argue that the best argument is the one that's convincing and requires the least amount of evidence, if you will. So, what I've done is I've grabbed exactly 3 screenshots that I will contrast with Tubb to show that what I believe demonstrates that he is the right fit for this role. Okay. So, this is about finding the right fit. This is not about beating up on somebody or talking trash about somebody. I would say the same things if Clint were on the call or if he came over and sat down and said, DL, how come you didn't endorse me? I would say the same things. I would say, these are the reasons why. And it's easy for me to do this because I'm not just talking trash. And I'm not just grabbing aimless screenshots in the worst way possible. All that I'm trying to do is say, let's define what it is that we're kind of looking for here. All right. So let's look at this first clip here, and then we're gonna compare this to Tubb. So let's see what we got here. All right. There we are. All right. So this first one here, I'm gonna read it. And this comes at let's see, earlier this month. It said there's a real lack of optimism and hope in our community that I personally believe has been and will be self-defeating. I actually agree. Many people have been upset with me for my positive coverage early on of RFK Jr. and Vivek Ramaswamy. To those that have felt it somehow diminished my bona fides, I'd encourage you to watch the episode premiering now. Now, I'm not one of those that I didn't have any beef with him doing that. I spent 6 days embedded with Vivek's camp in negative temps just to get a better read on who the man is. If you have your doubts, I don't blame you, but please consider their perspective. At the very least, I'll give you a lot to think about. Oh, and also, we're going to F and win. And then he has a link to the video where he talks about being embedded with the camp and kind of what he experienced and so on and so forth. And I watched it. And I encourage you to seek it out and watch it as well if you would like. But here, let me ask the most basic question here. While I don't have any issue with somebody embedding themselves in a campaign of somebody or spending a lot of time covering people positively, my question would be, did you spend 6 days with any libertarian candidates? Because I want you to think about something. If you're the VP, who will you be working with? The presidential nominee. So, did you spend that kind of time on our own candidates for whom you are looking to work with? And so I think that's an important question. This is not beating somebody up. This is not saying, oh, I can't believe you jumped on the Vivek bandwagon. I don't care about that. Like, it's a podcaster. That's what they do, right? We talk about whatever we darn well want to talk about. Now, Talib, on the other hand, well, he spent 2 years working with two other candidates here in Jacksonville. That would be Ronald Tracy Robeson and Eric Parker. And they met weekly to plan and coordinate their strategy. And part of that strategy was like, all right, what are we going to focus on, guys? And then how are we going to make sure that what you focus on, Eric, and what you focus on, Tracy, is not it works well with what I'm focusing on, right? Like, so they took this general approach where they said we're going to make our campaigns like overlap with each other. We're going to set up our message so that they complement each other. That's what he did. They did that for like 2 years. And a handful of times I even met with them. And we would discuss things that were going well. We would discuss concerns maybe that were happening at the time. There were various concerns. Some people would uh, reach out and we would have to try to see what was going on, all the political stuff. And then also ways to get out and get some attention. So I think this is a relevant question to ask. But again, I'm not blaming Clint for his coverage. Okay. That's that. I mean, he has a podcast and he appears on the podcast of others, big names as well. That's what they do. That's what podcasters do, right? This is so there's nothing there to criticize about. But what we are talking about is when you seek out a particular role, we want to know. I think a good question to ask is, what has been your relationship to people that are going to be operating in that same or in a similar role, the president, or supporters? And in this particular case, I think that that Tubb has demonstrated that he is able and willing to work with people in the Libertarian Party. Okay. Because we are talking about the nomination for running a political campaign in the Libertarian Party. And that is not at all the same as hosting a podcast, right? They're different. Not one is better than the other. They're different. The highest honor should be given to the person. And again, I believe it's the highest honor. You may see it differently, but I think it's the highest honor because it is literally these two positions are for the Libertarian Party, the largest opportunity for somebody outward facing, right? Like you get in front of the most people. So I think we should treat them as the highest honor. And that should be given to the person who has in part shown strong dedication to the party's success, not the success of liberty. The reason that many libertarians found themselves excited about the RFKs and the Viveks in the first place, but to the success of the party itself on the very grounds for which the party operates. Now, I had a couple of other, let's see if I can't throw up another image here because I had a couple. And I didn't mean to not have them ready. So we'll see if I can't grab them very, very quickly here. So I wanted to, let's see. Oops, I messed that up, didn't I? No, I didn't. No, it's good. It's good. We're good. We're good. I've got this. I got this still working out, folks. Give me just a second while while I bring this up on the screen here, because I want to show you here. I think this is important to show. All right. So this is just a quick graphic here. So this is Tubb speaking at one of the events, and this is my point here. Podcasting is one thing, getting on the microphone and talking, but then getting up and talking to people, not to convince them just of ideas, but to convince them to cast their vote or maybe even give money. Right. So this is what Tubb has experience doing. And he has experience with other candidates. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit more. I just kind of wanted to put that up on the screen there. All right. Number let's move on to the second one here. Again, we're just trying to get an idea of who is the better fit. So, second one. Um, Bummed that Vivek dropped, but seeing as he was self-funding, I can't blame him. I agree. He and his team inspired the hell out of me. Never seen a better group of people working on a singular goal so tirelessly. These are all very special people, and I can't wait to see what they do next. It's interesting. So, Tubbs' inspiration was came about after the church that he pastors was shut down over bureaucracy, and then he went on to try to resolve with issues with the city, and he was like, good lord, this is ridiculous. And as many people have found when they try to do pretty much anything with the city, the system had no easy path, and it was just ridiculously burdensome. That's partly what inspired him, but also what inspired Tubb is that, and he said this more than once. He said, "We have the best message, but we need to work on on being the best messengers." And he said this on more than one occasion here. Put it up on the screen, right? Here's just a few clips of Tubb saying this. And so, what inspires Tubb um, isn't a candidate from another party who, by the way, couldn't even win his own primary. It's that the people in his party have a great message and need a boost in getting it delivered. And I think this is something that we should look for out of our presidential and vice presidential nominees. What has inspired you? Now, it's okay if Vivek inspired you or RFK or whomever. I take no issue with that. I'm not here to tell you how you should be inspired. What I am here to do is say, well, if you want this particular role, then I want to know what motivates you. And what motivates you for Tob, or what motivates Tob, has been delivering to libertarians within the Libertarian Party the message and doing it better. And he has spent a great deal of time working toward that end. I don't want to diminish anybody, and it sounds very close to what we're getting at, right? Like, I'm not trying to diminish and say, "Hey, because you were inspired by this other candidate," you know, all I'm saying is the right person needs to be in the right role. If you're a podcaster, different things can inspire you. If you are a candidate, different things should inspire you. And we should ask those tough questions. All right, let's look at the last one here. Hmm. All right, let's pull that up on the screen. And here we go. So this is a part of a conversation. You could go look it up if you really wanted. So somebody asked him, he says, "Hey, everyone seems to be endorsing you." Now, this is about a conversation a long time ago. I think it was, there was some conversation about some Twitter spaces and people having talking about the, who will run for office and whatnot. He says, everyone seems to be endorsing you. It's almost like Dave, talking about Dave Smith, nominated this guy specifically to make that clear to you. Got Josie to you. That's the redheaded libertarian. Got Josie to get you to ask questions and be involved. Rectenwald is not the guy. You are. Everything Dave said about him, he said about you. How many have? And then Clint responds and says, "A few, and I appreciate the support. I really don't want to be involved in party politics. It's not who I am. I like saying and doing whatever I want." Now, Tubb has run for city council for a seat that represents more people than some districts for US Congress. He went on to accept the vice chair role here locally and then the vice chair role for the state. During his city council run, he worked directly with other libertarian candidates and he made connections with other candidates from other parties, some of them who won their seats. Oh, and he ran for lieutenant governor here in Florida. Are you sensing a trend? That is who Tubb is. And this is part of the distinction that I'm making. People operate in different areas, people are suited for different areas. We need, as a libertarian community, to start recognizing this. And rather than saying, "No, you don't belong, get out, you're not a real libertarian," or whatever nonsense that we come up with, what we need to do instead is say, "Where are you best fit?" And it seems that Clint himself has already acknowledged he is not the best fit for running for office. He literally said, "It's not who I am." Right? This is not, I'm not making this up. I'm not reading into somebody's words. I'm reading the words exactly as he wrote them. Now, who is he? He's a podcaster, right? And that's respectable. I have no issue with that. And you shouldn't either. We should only be looking to say, all right, where does each of us best fit and get us there? And then ask the tough questions and have the tough conversations with each other to say, no, I think you're better off over here. Right. All right. So continuing on. Now you might ask me, you might say, well, how well did Tubb do when he ran? And I'm going to tell you, we'll be honest, putting cards on the table here, as I always do. He ran as well as about any other libertarian might have who ran a five-way race. He got 1.4% of the vote. It's not really all that impressive, is it? Let's pull this up. Let's get a little image up here on the screen. All right. Sorry, I had most of my screenshots ready, but this one, a couple that I didn't. All right, so here we are. General election. This is the outcome, right? You got 1.4%. You can see that there were, I'm sorry, it was a six-way race, not a five-way. I forgot about the other person. So you had 2 Democrats, you had 2 Republicans, and you had an independent, who was running against. I mean, you when it's 1.4% in a six-way race for libertarians that tend to get only 1 to 2% if they're lucky, that's if they're really lucky. In a two-way race, when there's a Dem and a Republican, I think he did pretty well because he basically got drowned out by 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, and then I guess the independent guy, kind of added to the mix a little bit, right? So I think he did pretty well for his first time running, and this is my point. He is fit for the role because he started out as a nobody. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean, in terms of name recognition, nobody in Jacksonville, I didn't know who he was. He showed up at my door and he was an unknown person. And then he decided that he was going to run for an at large seat here in Jacksonville. He ran with 2 other candidates. He ended up only getting 1.4% in a six-way race. And that tends to be the number, when we joke amongst ourselves about the numbers that libertarians generally get, it's usually in the 1 to 2%. So his very, very first run was what we tend to think of as our standard, which, by the way, we should not think of it as a standard. Even if the data says that, we should raise our standard up and be like, look, you need to get this much, right? And then that's an entirely different conversation. So I think here that while 1.4% isn't going to win his ballot access, much less the presidency, um, if the only path is up, if that statement bears any truth, then we can expect Tubb to get better and better the more we convince him to run for office. But it also shows that he's an understanding of the political process, which is an enormous amount of work. If you watch Clint's video, he talks about this. He was embedded with the Vivek campaign, and he points out, he's like, man, this man works tirelessly, unlike anybody that I've ever seen. He's just constantly on the phone, doing a podcast, doing this. He's just constantly busy working. And it's true. Like there is a lot of work, but that work isn't just going on podcast. You have to be able to talk to a crowd. And, Vivek did show us that. And while we don't have the popularity of the videos to show, Hub also demonstrated that. He demonstrated that here locally, that he was able to talk with people and to reach out and to get them to vote for him, to get them to give him money, right? Like those are important things. He showed that he was able to work with 2 other candidates. That's also important. He has an understanding of the political process because that's what the president and the vice president nominations are. They are they are candidacies. Uh, they are part of the political process, and there is a specific process. There are guardrails under which you have to operate. Now, that's really going to be all of the screenshots. I don't need any more. Like I'm not trying to bash somebody. What I'm trying to do is compare 2 different candidates, the 2 that I know exist, and say, this is why I think one is better and more suited for this particular role than the other. Now, what I will do is I'm going to address a couple of potential objections that people have and see if I can convince you of what I have to say. So, messaging, reach. Let's talk about reach. He doesn't have a podcast. He has, relatively, he's a sizable following on Facebook, but it's, in comparison to Clint, who has 100,000 followers on Twitter and 17,000 subscribers on YouTube, he's substantially more. However, I want you to keep in mind that Tubb is a candidate that came out of nowhere with no public name recognition. With few exceptions, like the Joe Rogans of the world, the general electorate isn't familiar with political podcasters unless they have sought them out intentionally. In other words, the fact that somebody has 100,000 followers on Twitter does not mean that they are going to win any elections. Donald Trump had way more than that, and he lost his last election. right? So it doesn't necessarily translate into getting votes. Let's see what else we got here. All right. But if we're comparing one's voice to a call to action, then let's ask in fairness, what action has Clint's audience taken at his direction? Okay. 17,000 people watching his show, 100,000 people following him on Twitter. And I'm not diminishing that, right? It's not like this small guy over here trying to punch up and, trying to chase some clout. It's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is, what action has his audience taken that we can verify? We know from the small crowd that Tubb has what action they have taken. They voted for him. They donated money to him specifically for him to get elected, right? It's said of politicians that they can count two things: votes and money. Tubb has verifiably gotten both. We know that Tubb has the experience in working in this political process to get money and votes. Can we say the same thing about Clint? To my knowledge, no. Now, that doesn't mean that podcasters can't make money. Making money from a podcast and getting money to support you as a candidate are different things. And I don't believe that one translates necessarily into the other. It might, it's possible, but without further evidence, I'm going to lean on the side of I know who has been able to get both votes and money. Basically, who has been able to get actionable items from people that are following them. So I don't follow this train of thought that says, well, somebody has a big following, they're totally going to, they're totally going to make all this influence. And we've tried this before, right? Like when Joe Jorgensen was running, a lot of people were trying really hard to get her on Joe Rogan's show because we were just sure that if Joe Rogan would bring Joe Jorgensen on, then that would boost her and we would get more votes. Now, I don't believe that she ever did get on his show, but the fact of the matter is, I don't think that anybody can demonstrate that just simply getting on a big show leads to getting votes, because there's all kind of mainstream media and we have all kind of politicians who for many years have gotten on these shows and they have failed miserably. We watch it in the Republican Party, we watch it in the Democratic Party. It's no different for the Libertarian Party. We cannot just simply rely on this idea that a big audience translates into more votes. Now, a big audience does translate into more eyes and ears on a message. But again, we're talking about a political framework for which the two candidates, the president and the vice president, are expected to go out and court votes and get money. That's what they need to do, right? They're not just there for the message. Speaking of, you might say, well, since Tubb has a smaller platform, he hasn't spread his message out. Do we really know what the things that he's discussed and so on and so forth? So as it turns out, I have this book here, I'll show you. So goodness there. So Introduction to Libertarian Party. You might not think of it as the most interesting book, and that's fine. But in chapter 3, the author goes through 25 different topics and kind of just gives like a little summary, like a little one or two sentence, description of where libertarians fall on these topics. Tubb and I, we went through and did a 1-hour episode on every single one of them. Topics such as terrorism, free markets, social security, free speech, healthcare, drugs, the military, and so on. We talked about these. He is on record talking about all of these things. I'm sure Clint has as well. I do want to point out, though, that all of these things were in the context of presenting libertarians as the Libertarian Party, from the Libertarian Party specifically, as the better political option. We are the option, the political option with better ideas. In other words, Tubb has already spent well over 25 hours talking about much of our party's platform, specifically in the context of libertarian candidates or just Libertarian Party, libertarian members. And I think that when you want to talk about a messenger, we need for our political party, we need to get away from this idea that we're talking about liberty in general. We're just going to spread the word of liberty. That's fine to do, but I don't think it's a political strategy that's worth taking. And so far, I haven't seen any good arguments in favor of it. What I think we need, since again, we are asking people to operate within the confines of a political operation that has rules and regulations and limitations. Since we are asking two people to operate in that, we need them to demonstrate that they've already communicated that same message under that same pretense. And that pretense is more narrow than just the idea of liberty. Again, it's a good thing that Clint has talked about these kind of things, and I think he should continue talking about these things. But I don't think that in turn it translates into the messenger that we need. Um, which kind of brings me to the next point here, the next potential objection. Well, DL, maybe we need messengers, not politicians. In other words, maybe I'm looking at it wrong. Maybe the president and the vice president roles really should be about the message of liberty and not to win. So I disagree with that, as you probably already understood. But let's unpack what that really means. Even if we use those positions just as messenger positions, they are still operating, as I said, within a defined context of political campaigns. Therefore, both roles will need to operate within that framework. They will need to operate within a set of rules and cooperate together as a team. As Clint said himself, I like saying and doing whatever I want. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. However, Clint does have a reputation for blocking people, right? There's literally been threads where I've seen people like post their block, and it was like a support group. It was like, "Hey, my name is so and so. I've been blocked by Clint." Right now, I think annually he unblocks people, and that's fine. And then he reblocks them as he goes along if they cross whatever whatever barrier that he's decided is a bridge too far. Tom, however, has experience working cooperatively with other candidates and with party leaders. Now, it's not to say that Clint can't do that. I'm just saying that Tom has this experience already. He's already done this. He's worked with other candidates in our party and with our party leaders and with our party members. And it's an open secret that the Joe Jorgensen and Spike Cohen campaigns didn't really get along. The depth and who did what is not within the scope of this episode. But the VP position is a supporting role to the top of the ticket. And we need to nominate people who can, I'm going to speak bluntly here, play well with others, or at least the other nominee. We know we have evidence. Tubb has demonstrated that he is able to do this. We already have that on the table. We know what he can do. We know that in the past, a ticket did not do that, and they did not do so well. So whatever goal, whether you think it's about messaging, whether you think it's about getting votes, it doesn't matter. We need people in those roles who have demonstrated that they're able to work cooperatively with other people, even if maybe they don't particularly like them. Because in the Libertarian Party, most of my audience probably knows this, but for anybody that's not familiar with the Libertarian Party, we vote on our presidential and vice presidential nominees separately. We don't have a joint ticket. So it's not like somebody's running for president and they're like, hey, this person is my VP. It's not how it works. We choose them, the delegates choose them independently. So you could get two people that aren't particularly fond of each other, and they're going to have to figure out how to work with each other. And when Tubb ran with the other two gentlemen, Eric Parker and Tracy Robeson, he ran with people before, like he didn't know them ahead of time. They just kind of they literally they all showed up all kind of all at once, and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna run for office." And like our affiliate was like, "Wait, what? Three? What?" So we had three people that kind of just popped up out of nowhere. They didn't know each other, and they said, "We're all gonna run." In fact, I'll tell you a little story, something that not a lot of people know. People here in Duval probably know this, but people outside of Duval may not be aware of this. Tracy Robinson and Tubb live in the same district area. And what that means is They initially both came and they said, we're going to run for the for seat 8 on city council. But then it turned out like, hey, wait a minute, we got two people running for the same seat. So they worked between themselves to figure out, okay, one of us run for the the district seat, and the other person run for the at-large seat. And so they determined, they cooperatively figured out who would be better to run for which seat, and then they cooperatively again all ran their campaigns simultaneously. Goodness, and without any problems. There was no drama. There was no drama in their campaigns. They all, I mean, I think there might have been a few times where they were annoyed at each other, but overall, it did not affect their campaign. And so I think this is demonstrating exactly what we want, because whether you think it's about messaging or whether you think it's about votes, and I think it's about votes, and we can maybe talk about that at a later time. Whether it doesn't matter what you think, the people need to be able to work together cooperatively. And while Clint may be very capable of doing so, I just don't see the evidence that he's demonstrated it so far. Um, and I just don't see that he's worked with people in our camp. I mean, he spent 6 days with the Vivek camp, but I don't really see any 6 days with people in our camp. I don't see any demonstration of like working with some of our candidates, maybe locally or maybe within the state, but I see that from Tubb. So ultimately, when I'm comparing the two, I think that for the role, no matter how you look at it, Tubb has demonstrated what we're looking for. Final words. Tubb is a Christian pastor. I believe that he has demonstrated a strong ability to separate his faith and any use of government appropriately. That's why I read the email that I did, because when he first came to my door, I was skeptical. Not gonna lie. I was like, oh, Christian guy. I used to be an evangelical. So I know how, or at least maybe I used to know, but I know I'm familiar with how many Christians operate. Christian first, everything else after. And that includes how government is used, not just their moral beliefs, but how they impose them or don't impose them on others. And Tubb demonstrated that he could separate one from the other. We actually like to joke here that and this is actually true. He would simultaneously criticize city council for passing onerous rules on a local strip club, and he did. That's that 100% true story. But then turn around on Sunday and tell his congregation that it's immoral behavior, right? He embodies the very idea of what it means for government to leave people alone. He has shown that he can operate within the political realm, speaking directly to people in a way that garners votes and money. And he has shown that he can operate within a team environment explicitly for that purpose with other candidates, supporters, and even party leaders. On the other hand, Clint is a podcaster with a sizable audience size. Sounds awkward. With a sizable audience. I think he's right where he's supposed to be, doing exactly what he should be doing. He has spoken at great length on many shows about national topics, and that is a good thing. I think he does it well. I think that's where he belongs. I think Tubb belongs running for our VP nomination or any VP role, which he seems to be doing. And the reason is because I believe that Tubb has shown that he can fulfill that role as it's supposed to be fulfilled, right? He is in the role that he belongs. Clint is in the role that he belongs. If the delegates nominate Clint to be the VP, I think we're doing a disservice to our party, the role, and Clint himself. Now, I could be wrong. It's possible. It's very possible that you could get nominated and do very, very well. It's very possible. But I can only go on what I know to be true or what I have evidence for. Beyond that, it's pure speculation. When I compare the two, I think there's a clear difference. Just who is a better fit for which role? If you were to ask me, should Tubb be a podcaster? I would probably tell you no, which is weird. He's a pastor. He speaks every Sunday. But being a pastor and speaking about your religious faith and guiding people in that particular realm is much different than bloviating behind a microphone every day or however often about all the political things going on in the world. It's much different. And it's also different from running a campaign. And the point of this entire show was simply our producers here. I guess I better hurry. The point of this entire show was not to beat up on anybody. In fact, it was the opposite. It was to say, look, I think that we have some good people in this community. Hold on, champ. But we need to get them in the right roles. And we need to be willing to have that conversation. And we need to do it in a way that is edifying, that is not bashing other people. And so that's one of the other reasons that I decided to do this show, because I was like, because I debated it. I was like, well, I could just talk about Tub, or I could talk about Tub and Clint. And I was like, you know what? Let me take the opportunity to show people how this conversation should happen, the things that we should do and should not do. And I think if anybody's fair, they will say, look, you didn't beat up on Clint. You just simply said, look, comparing the two objectively, based on what you know to be true, what you have evidence for, you came to a conclusion that Tubb was a better fit for this particular role. That's it. That's all that I attempted to do. And that's what we should do as a party for any role. It doesn't matter whether it's the presidential nominee, the vice presidential nominee, the chair of the state party, the chair of the national party, or the chair of a local party. We should always be willing to have these kind of conversations in a way that's respectful to other people and at least provides them an opportunity to fit somewhere within the community. Far too often, people will say, well, this person doesn't belong here. He's not a real libertarian. She's not a real libertarian. All this other nonsense, rather than just simply saying, you know what, I don't think you're fit for this role, but I think this role over here is good for you. And I think that's where I would like to see you. We need to have those conversations. And that's what this episode was about. This episode was about, you know, obviously, putting out who I'm going to endorse, but also showing people how we need to have these conversations so that we can start winning. Because even if I'm wrong about these two people, even if I'm wrong and it turns out that Clint is the better option, which again, I don't believe is the case. But even if I'm wrong, I'm not wrong about the approach that I'm taking. I'm not wrong that what I'm doing is generally the best path. There might be exceptions somewhere. Maybe there's something that I missed, what have you. But the reality is, this is how we manage our movement. This is how we move forward. Rather than fighting each other and taking swings and trying to show each other who has the wittiest comeback on social media, what we need to do is sit down and define what we're looking for, and then evaluate the people that are seeking whatever it is that we're talking about, and then determine who is the proper fit or who has demonstrated they are a proper fit. And if they haven't demonstrated it, then we simply say, hey, not right now, maybe later, start doing something else and show us that you have what we believe are the right qualities for this particular role. And when we do that, the liberty movement will flourish. We will not have to try to worry about getting the one best messenger because they happen to have a large audience. We need to stop relying on people, on one or two people to do all of our work for us. They should complement the work that we're already doing. And the work that we're already doing should be getting people into the right positions so that they can be successful, so that the whole movement can be successful. Let's go back really quickly, and I'm not going to play the clip, but there's a clip in there's a part of Clint's episode on Vivek, and he's talking about like all the work that they're doing. He's kind of praising Vivek for the hard work, and he did. He worked very. I mean, I didn't have to go be embedded to see that man was working hard. He went to like 900 campaign events in Iowa when it was like in temperatures that I'm not even sure are real numbers. Okay, so it's clear that he was really, really working hard. He wasn't working hard by himself. He had a team of people behind him that was supporting him. We, as the libertarian community, the liberty community, we need to do the same thing, but instead of solely rallying around one person, we need to rally around each other because we are the underdog. We will have to fight 2, 3, maybe 4 times as hard as anyone else. So if you think about the work that Vivek put in and he still didn't win the primary, imagine the amount of work that our candidates are going to have to put in and possibly not even win the election. And when I say possibly, I mean like probably, right? Think about that for a minute. We owe it to them to do this work before we ask them to go run. We owe it to them to build an infrastructure for which they can be successful, whatever that means, however we define it. And part of that means we need to have honest conversations, stop fighting each other, and get people in the right roles. Period. All right. That's my show. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let's see. Are there any comments that I need to address? Let's see what we got here. Good morning to you, Mr. Ben. Appreciate you tuning in. All right. Let's see here. All right. Liberty Sun. I know, right? Like my producer, he came in, he was like, well, you probably didn't see it, but it was like a little nod, right? You know, like, hey, breakfast time. All right, folks. Let's wrap this up. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you got something out of it. I want to thank you for watching. Let me know if it was informative and inspiring. I want you to be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern, for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Tomorrow, I'm going to be back with some bill reviews, and then continuing on as I do through the week. Then again, Sunday night, 7 p.m. with my co-host, Susan Hogarth, to discuss LP happenings. If you missed the show last night, we even tackled, we talked about what's happening in the LP. We looked across the vast tyranny that's in this United States. And we said, here's what's going on in the libertarian community that you need to be aware of. But then after that, we tackled the issue of RFK attending the Libertarian Party of California's convention. So, we had a conversation about that. We had some disagreements there, but I think we covered quite a bit. So go ahead, check out that. You can find it on my YouTube channel or my Rumble channel, which hopefully you are subscribed to. But if not, then you can easily go and subscribe by going to youtube.libertydad.com, rumble.libertydad.com. You can find all my episodes on YouTube. The more recent ones on Rumble just recently started there. While you're there, leave me a note, like throw me a comment, let me know how I'm doing. Lastly, I want you to remember, if you are a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you tomorrow. But for now, I